Well, I guess we should get into our chat. We're obviously here to talk about Push. Now, your previous films, Djinn and the Boy Behind the Door, had kids in peril, and this time you've gone one step further. You've got an unborn child in peril. What is it about you guys and just conjuring nightmares for parents everywhere?
I thought this time we were going a little bit away with that by like having adults, but it is true that we're still having kids in peril in a different just in a different way. Um, I think that we just really innately are drawn to kind of vulnerable characters that kind of innately have a little bit of sympathy already built in because we don't like to spend a lot of time on exposition and backstory, and we just like our audience to be on board with them right away. Um, and this lent itself really well to that in this scenario.
But also characters that I think on like first glance might be underestimated.
Mhm.
Um, and it's like through the course of the movie, they can really show their inner strength. With Natalie, the pregnancy was really interesting to us because it really gave her something to fight for more than just herself.
Sorry. And so much of Push, unlike this, unlike for me right now, so much of Push is quiet, with just the occasional flurry of dialogue. And I think that there's that one sequence where it's been quiet for ages, and then Raoul's the other side of the door, and he says something that is heinous anyway. But I think because of the fact that it has been so quiet for so long, those words just become even more shocking. How as directors do you kind of go about judging when to use dialogue and when to kind of let the action speak for itself.
Um, it's definitely a balance. I feel like we firmly believe um, film is a visual medium, so we really like to try to avoid dialogue or exposition when we can, when we know we can tell the story or build the suspense without it. That line in particular was a very heavy line, um, but we thought it was very impactful for the way that the client has sort of been targeting her and manipulating and playing games and really playing on her biggest fear. And obviously, Raul is such an amazing actor. He really made it a very terrifying moment in the movie.
Yeah. And I think that also in general in our movies, we like to just kind of lean into like in reality in a lot of these scenarios, like you're not going, especially if you're alone, you're not going to be like chatting it up or, just kind of throwing out expository stuff. You're going to be as quiet as a mouse, like intentionally trying to, escape this peril. So we really like to lean into that and allow things to just kind of come out more organically in that way.
I mean, you're talking of Raoul. He was one of the highlights of Smile 2 last year. He was
Yeah.
only he was a small supporting role, and he was really creepy there. But here he is just all out sinister. What was it about him, that made him, the perfect antagonist?
Honestly, we've been fans of Raul since forever. We were like, we didn't even think that we were going to be able to get him for this. We wrote him this really like sweet letter, trying to, get him on board. And we just knew he was such a versatile actor. We hadn't really seen him before in this type of role, and but we knew that like he had it in him. And just like when he came to set and like he just had all this prepared, he's like brought so much extra to this role than we even like had prepared for ourselves, and it's just been an incredible experience seeing him like terrorize on screen.
And the strength of so many horror films relies not only on kind of like your, quote unquote monster, but on, your lead, on your potential final person. What qualities do you both think that the character of Natalie has that kind of, makes her fit into that mold? And, what was it about, Alicia? How did she kind of bring them to life?
That's such a good question. We definitely agree that the heroes are just as important as like the Michael Myers and the Freddy Kruegers. Um, when we cast Alicia, I think we had something a little different in mind with Natalie. We've had the script for such a long time. You live with it. Sometimes you think it's never going to happen. It almost didn't even happen. Um, But when our casting director, who's amazing, Amy Lippin, she's cast all of our movies so far, showed us Alicia's work, and we got to like meet with her. We really, we really discovered a different side to Natalie, and I think you've seen the movie. Like her performance is just undeniable. She brings this inner strength. She has this great vulnerability, and she just really elevates it to a place I don't even think we envisioned Natalie originally could have gone. So we're just so impressed and blown away by the performances, but especially everything, Alicia gave to the performance
And she was also just able to like effortlessly, oh my God,
effortlessly.
effortlessly, I can't speak right now, harken back to this tone of like the Hitchcockian era that we really wanted to pull out in this film. And she just naturally radiates that. And it just allowed this to feel like period in a way that just makes it allows the movie to feel much more like unique and fresh. And it was just so refreshing to have her as our lead.
And sort of going back to the thing with, you guys preferring to show rather than when speak things, that must be quite a different skill set for an actor. Actors are used to learning pages of dialogue, but I'm guessing here they're almost learning, pages of camera angles so that they know, where they should be, where the camera's going to be. Because obviously the camera's kind of moving around Natalie as, she's moving around the house and stuff. So it must be quite an interesting challenge for an actor.
Yeah, I think that. Oh, you go ahead, David, actually.
No, but um, to totally agree. It's a different skill set. I think in a lot of ways it's a harder skill set because you do have to convey those emotions, sometimes beats of the story and what's happening around you with just looks or expressions. That's why again, like it always comes in handy to have like really talented actors. I think we've been so lucky to have great acting in all of our movies so far. That's something we really prioritize as filmmakers. Um, with these indie budgets, you always have to find cuts here and there, but that's like one place you can never cut because if you don't believe the actors, you just don't believe anything that's happening on screen.
Yeah. And like it does there is sometimes a lot of like kind of choreography in a way that goes on in our movies with we like to have these really extended oneers that, kind of there'll be shots that go through multiple areas and span over, multiple minutes. And it's like this kind of dance between our actors and the camera crew just like figuring everything out. And that is a little bit of a tricky, delicate balance. But like David said, we were just lucky to have these actors that are able to just kind of work with them so easily and allow that to just come out.
And I guess the third character in the film is this house, which, most of the siege takes place in. Was that a house that you had in mind when you were writing the script, or was it something that you found later and then kind of had to make tweaks to the script for?
Definitely was something we found later once we realized that like we were going to be able to make the movie. And it was a similar situation with Boy Behind the Door where you know, you have something in mind, it's a little more of a prototype, but once you find the location, you can really like tailor it to sequences and the action. That's when it gets like really exciting. Like one thing the house had that was never in the script was the elevator. So like once we saw that it had an elevator, we're like, oh my gosh, we have to like write this in. It needs to be like somehow existing in the story. Um, and that's part of, I think, the fun, like exploration, creative, you know, period.
Yeah, we really love tailoring our stories to the locations. Our locations oftentimes do become additional characters. And just the way that we like to explore the spaces, it becomes just very vital to the story and the tone. And the elevator was a huge draw for like why we chose this location in general, because we're like, oh, we can definitely craft some fun sequences around this.
Yeah, because it's not something that you're used to seeing in films in general. It's normally, I guess some multimillionaire or something would have a lift in the house, not some, house that can't be sold.
Yes.
Totally.
And I guess, you know, given that this is a home invasion story featuring a pregnant woman, there's no doubt going to be comparisons drawn to Inside. Was that a film that you were thinking of when you were writing it? And how do you think that this film stands apart from that? Because I do think that although they have, that kind of similar logline, they are two very different films.
You know what's do you want to say?
I'm Justin and we're like a hive mind.
Yeah.
I know what he's gonna say because we talk about movies all the time. I've never even heard of that movie until like a couple weeks ago when I was watching some of the reactions for the trailer. And people were like, looks similar to the movie Inside. I I I'm sure it's a really great movie. I hope it's a great comparison. But sorry, what were you gonna say, Justin?
Literally the same thing. So
It's a foreign film?
Yeah,
it
there's
is.
a there's a
I
yeah. French, it's French. There's a remake, an American language remake, and then the original is a French film. It's part of the new wave French extremity, so it's a lot bloodier than Push. But I think there is kind of just the pregnant woman in peril, home invasion, baby under threat, is something that is obviously going to draw some comparisons, I think.
yeah,
It
we
sounds a lot like a lot of fun.
it
All
does sound fun. I was researching it after like literally and it was literally a couple weeks ago. And I'm like, okay, I see some of like the overlap and but yeah, I still haven't watched it yet. So but it does seem like it's something that would be fun to watch. So gotta check it out.
Yeah. And it's great that you weren't influenced by it at all. So if anybody does say, "Oh, these guys are just copying," well, no, you're not because you literally only heard of it when the trailer came out. So that's good. And obviously, Push is arriving on Shudder on the 11th of July. It's going to be sitting beside the boy behind the door. What does it mean for you as filmmakers not only to have one film, but two films on, Shudder, which is, it's turning 10 years old and it's got this reputation for being such a, curated platform for horror.
Thank you, Kat. Well, actually, we have three films on Shudder because the
Oh,
Djinn has also been moved to Shudder.
nice.
Um, it's really been amazing because Shudder has really allowed a space, a platform for these movies to exist. Really, I don't think our movies would have even come out without Shudder and IFC. Um, Not everyone understands the genre unless you're like a real fan of the genre. So and then they just curate so many great movies from the past and from different countries. It's it's really amazing to be part of the Shutter family. So we're really excited about it.
Yeah, it's kind of surreal, like and for it to be our third one with them. And they do take such good care of our films and really get it right into the, fan base of like the people that, live and breathe and eat horror. Many of them more like are richer horror aficionados than even we are. So, like, we didn't even know about Inside. So, like there's a lot of like that it's just great to like expose it to that audience.
And what's next for you guys? If you started, percolating the ideas for the next film?
Yes. So right now, we're attached to the Nowhere game. Hasn't started filming yet. It's actually the first one that we haven't written ourselves, which is exciting. So we're really, really pumped about that. It's gonna star Kieran Shipka and McKenna Grace. Um, and yeah, just really, really excited about that and cooking up some other things on the side.
Yeah.
Nice. Well, thank you guys, so much, and best of luck with the film.